trade-off that by me trying to live my life as much as I can, I've potentially had more sessions of CAP because my skin has been exposed to more irritants more often.
Topical steroid withdrawal is impacting lives in so many terrible ways. People are desperate for help, desperate for support outside of time being the only healer. They're seeking help from cold atmospheric plasma treatment. You can hear their stories here.
Okay, hi Emma. Thanks for meeting me today. It's just such an honor and a privilege to connect with you and to hear about your journey through TSW and CAP. And so, yeah, please just share with us a little bit about yourself and how you decided to actually pursue cold atmospheric plasma treatment late last year.
Yeah, so I would say I'm a long-term steroid user. I was prescribed steroids from when I was 3 years old to 34 years old. So that's quite a number of decades. Obviously, it started off low strength and went higher and higher. But when I was 34, this eczema had spread all over my body, which then led me to finding out about topical steroid addiction. And that's when I stopped using steroids. I haven't used steroids now for 6 years. At the start of my journey, it was very much just giving it time, not using steroids, making myself comfortable. So I would moisturize, non-steroid moisturizer, and have hot baths. Anything to give me comfort. I ended up having to stop work, move back to my parents. I needed to be cared for full time, and had to stop doing all sport and socializing because I was just not in a fit state. A mission for me was crawling out of bed to go to the bath every day. That was like such a mountain to climb, but you got some relief from being in the bath. I was hospitalized at 2.5 years, steroid free because my skin had got so bad. At that point, I was then given advice to go on light therapy, which I did try for a few months. And yes, my skin improved. But after a few months, the skin condition deteriorated. So I then went on immune suppressant, cyclosporine. I was on that for about a year, moving up and down in dosage. I started quite high, but I was aware of the risks. So I tried to get as low as I could. But then I got diagnosed with squamous cell carcinoma on my scalp, which they put down to the cyclosporine and light therapy use. So obviously I had to come off cyclosporine. And at that point, I was off cyclosporine. I was over 5 years into topical steroid withdrawal. And I was coming back to having to be cared for at home, stop work again. So I was looking for something to help me, which is when I then came across CAP. And that's when my CAP journey started.
So you started CAP, when was it?
So that was September, the end of September 2022, so last year.
Okay. And so you're still doing it, and we're talking now in August 2023. So tell us maybe a little bit about your case when you got to the CAP clinic. Like, what did you learn about what was going on and why time was not healing you as quickly as you would have liked? And you really, by the sounds of it, it feels like everything was getting worse, but not better.
Yes, that was the when I came off the cyclosporine, my skin started to go down, and those early days of TSW, I was so scared of going back to them that I was ready to do something else. And when I went to CAP, just walking into the clinic, it was so reassuring. It was people who'd been in very similar positions, similar profiles. Obviously, it was the acknowledgement that you are going through steroid withdrawal, which was very good. So I always felt that was a fighting battle. That it was, my condition was called severe eczema, whereas in my mind it was steroid-induced eczema or red skin syndrome. on my first session, obviously, I went into the treatment room and had the cap therapy, and from that moment, it wasn't an instant hit, but it was my skin felt calmer. It wasn't burning as much even after the first session. But obviously I'm quite a few months down the line now, and it hasn't been plain sailing. It has been up and down. I would say I've been having flares. I can say I've been having flares from the irritant exposures, obviously that's well documented. And that all plays a role in how you respond to cap therapy.
I know it's so difficult to sort of turn off your life, right? Right? Like for us here in Thailand, we're sort of idle and we're advised, just like you guys in the UK, to just sort of take it easy, stay home, remove your sort of world to irritant exposure. You have a business, you're fully functional individual, you have to go to work, you work with young children. Like what do you say to TSW and then CAP patients that can't necessarily turn off their life? Like, what do you say to them?
And I would say part of the reason I think I'm still having CAP now is because I've been trying to live my life whilst I've been having the treatment. I've been working. I didn't work for the first 2 months, but as soon as CAP started to have such positive impact on my skin, I went back to work. So I needed to go back to work. I'd had sort of 5 years of not really working as much as I wanted to. So I would say, I can control my home environment in terms of irritants, but I have very little control over my work environment. I go into schools, I go into people's homes. It's all out of my controls. And I think that's potentially a trade-off, that by me trying to live my life as much as I can, I've potentially had more sessions of CAP because my skin has been exposed to more irritants more often.
How do you feel about that? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Emma.
I was going to say as well, I absolutely love sport, and that was what I used to do before I started TSW. I'd play tennis for hours every day. I'd go to the gym. I'd go on long runs. That gave me my feel-good factor, and that all had to come to an end. When I was spending 9 hours a day in a bath, you can't then go out on a run or go to the gym. And so as soon as I started to feel a bit better and go back to work, I started to go to the gym more and or play tennis. And I think the sweating that obviously entailed was an irritant to my skin. So that caused, I would say, more my skin to maybe plateau or not make as much progress as, say, if I hadn't have done the gym. So that would be, one of my learning points. And I'm currently not doing any sport at the moment or trying to avoid sweating.
How strong do you think your skin is now after 40 sessions? Like, I know you probably feel it, you're maybe flaring less, maybe talk a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, so I would say definitely flaring less. And I'm able to identify what's potentially causing the flare. Prior to CAP, I just felt I was in one continual flare cycle, whereas now there's definite gaps in flares, and you can pinpoint, oh yes, today my skin is showing this sign. And you can investigate what it was. You could see red patches, whereas before my whole body was red. So definitely that's helped. I have unfortunately suffered with infection, so I've got a fungal infection at the moment, which again I think is probably because I tried to do too much exercise too soon. And the fungal infection, how I understand it, is that it's made my skin more sensitive. So I would say 2 weeks ago I had a flare, and I didn't know, I hadn't changed anything. I'd gone to the same workplace, I'd had the same home environment. I think that was because my skin was more sensitive with the fungal infection, and I was reacting to my wash powder for my clothes, which has never been an issue before, but because of the fungal infection, it's impacted on how the skin's reacting now.
Something we do over here is we just use water to just wash everything. Water and physiogel, you know?
Yeah.
You mentioned the word trade-off earlier in our conversation. Could you just extrapolate on that a little bit? I guess I'm just trying to extract from you, like, Kath, you know, 9 hours in the bathtub. How do you feel about it now? Where you are in this journey of healing?
I think obviously completely my decision, and there's lots of decisions and there's lots of factors playing a role in my personal decision. But I would happily have traded off my 9 hours in the bath and the previous 5 years of suffering to go through CAP sooner. And I think the 5 years that I've had TSW and the opportunities and suffering that have gone through meant that as soon as CAP started to have an effect for me, and it was the only thing so far that I've tried that's had such a positive impact on my life, as soon as it started to show positives, I tried to get back to what I'd missed out on 5 years. So I would say, yeah,
just choose what you do. Choose what you do. Yeah. And I think that's a really good lesson learned for interested observers who are considering CAP, you know. And I guess I would sort of close by saying, do you have you've shared a lot of great advice, because that was going to be one of my questions anyways, but do you have any sort of like thoughts or final words as it relates to CAP and TSW and just message for the world, really?
Well, my thoughts are, I wish I'd found CAP sooner in my TSW journey, because it has, for me, brought me back to being Emma. I've got my skin and life back. For example, I can now get out of the shower or the bath and not hold my breath until I've got some cream on me. It's like a huge sigh of relief. I feel not addicted to something. I don't need something for my skin. This is it, how it is naturally and healthy. And something else that I noticed that has been, you know, just confirms how life-changing this has been for me. In September, I went on holiday with my mum, where I spent most of the holiday in bed. And then by the January, having had 4 months of CAP therapy, I was able to go to New York for a friend's birthday and not have any skin issues caused by taking part in all the activities that we had planned, which again was brilliant. And I didn't have to take a huge bottle of tub of of moisturizer with me, so I could just have a hand luggage.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Those are all really strong wins, you know, for you and for your own mental sanity and for just like your happiness barometer, right? I wanted to ask you, do you you also have hardened skin, right? Or you had hardened skin that you grappled with, which is also part of why your journey was so long.
Yes. I didn't know it was called hardened skin at the time. But yes, I had lots of skin that needed to come off to then get to the TSW skin underneath. And again, that's because for years I've used steroids sparingly, but then always put moisturizer on the top. So yes, just not being able to have to get a moisturizer or have to put a steroid cream on a small area is just such a weight off the shoulders. I can't explain it, but yes. I think, like you say, hardened skin has impacted on my journey, as well as the infections and sort of trying to live a life as I'm having the CAP therapy.
Yeah, and something Jay tells us to hear is it kind of like doubles your time frame for healing. So something to be mindful of as you're going through the journey. But I mean, it is what it is. You take it, right? So.
Exactly. And maybe if I'd found CAP earlier, then I could have been in that space where I could have taken another 6 months off work and done the treatment. But everyone's journey is different. things I found out about CAP, or personal to me, is that it's a treatment, but it's kind of like a full-time job. Yes, you go and have your treatment in the clinic, but you need to put in the work afterwards in terms of avoiding the irritants, making sure you've got enough rest, trying not to sweat and get back to your life. You can't get back to your life straight away, however desperate you are. You know, you've still got to be patient through the time it takes for your skin to get to the level it needs to get to, and that's different for every person. And for me, I just need to be a bit more patient.
Well, Emma, you know, I think thanks again for just taking the time to do this and sharing your experience with us. You know, it's about what's working, what's not working, what the experience has been like for you personally. Yeah, and just really thanks for sharing. And your photos will really tell the story as well. So
Brilliant. Yeah, and I think that's right. It's just about, this is my experience to help somebody else make an informed decision. I think going for CAP is very, for me, it was a big decision, because it does have implications on your time and your finances. But as long as you've got the information about it from different sources, then you can make the decision that's right for you. And perhaps I may have found out about CAP a bit sooner, or made a different decision in my treatment if I'd seen more videos from other people. But I'm just so pleased I've found CAP and have been able to start and benefit from it.
awesome. Well, thanks for your time, Emma. I really appreciate it. And yeah, just really enjoying speaking to you today and learning more about your journey.
Yeah, thank you.
To watch this full interview, access the YouTube link in my bio.